Welcome to DAIKAIJU Network commentary of 1959's Battle in Outer Space. I am your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other
Jason, what's going
co-host.
on, everyone? Sorry for the little bit of technical difficulties here on my end. Some things just wasn't working right.
So we are doing a Japanese sort of, I guess, sci-fi classic. It is not necessarily as, I don't want to say well-known, but definitely not as, I guess, hailed uh, as well as, let's say, the Mysterians, for example. And so this came a couple of years after the Mysterians. And so before we kind of get into the commentary, I just want to start off by saying that with the commentaries, we're not only here to do these to learn a little bit of something about the movie through our own research, but also just to have some fun, just to sit back and relax, give our own thoughts and opinions on the films as we go through them, and to maybe even have some fun by cracking some harmless jokes along the way
Yep.
as well. So before we go on, let's just give our quick little overview as far as our own personal opinions about this movie. For me, I'll start. This is a film I have seen, gosh, maybe, excuse me, maybe a dozen times or so. I purchased this on the Toho special effects collection DVD released by Columbia TriStar/Sony back in 2009. And it's become sort of a pseudo favorite classic sci-fi film of mine. I am a huge fan of classic alien invasion films, especially older films. I just kind of like how aliens and invasion films are portrayed with those particular classic films. It's one I've always kind of considered to be a pretty decent film. There are things about it that I think are done fairly well. There are things about it that I think are a little rough around the edges. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty decent
hmm
film.
When it comes to Battle in Outer Space, for me, I think I've only seen it once, I believe, because I know we've uh, reviewed the film. I would say a few years ago over on the podcast version of our show, and I do have that uh, three film set that I believe that you gave me a few years ago that included H Man, that, and then as well as the Mothra 1961 film. But the other day, I'm going to be I just bought the Blu-ray version of the H Man and Battle of Outer Space or In Outer Space combo uh, via through Amazon. So that's what I'm going to be watching uh, for today's commentary here. But I can't really describe what my feelings were towards this film, and I haven't gone back to our previous show when we talked about this uh, movie. So you can sort of say that I'm going to be going back in with a fresh mind on this film because I just can't remember what my feelings were towards Battle in Outer Space. So even though I watched it once, still going in with a fresh mind on it.
Yeah, for me, this film is pretty fresh in my mind. For quite a while, since about last fall, I've been showing my young son various kaiju films every so often. And this one I showed him month and a half ago. So this one is fairly fresh in my mind. It's definitely going to be a huge sense of deja vu. And like I said, I've already seen it quite a few times already over the years. So for me, I'm going to be watching the English dubbed version of this film. I have not seen the Japanese uh, language English subtitle version of this film. I do have it obviously on the disc. I just have not
Yeah,
seen that
I'm gonna be
version.
watching the Japanese version with the subtitles on since I'm gonna be having the volume down quite a bit here, so that none of the
Mhm.
audio doesn't seep through, and especially with YouTube and all their terms of service and everything. So I at least try to avoid it.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, if you have not joined us before, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, go. When I say go, hit the OK/play button on your player, and we will get going. So, are you ready,
Yep, I
Jason?
got it highlighted on play right now.
All right, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. FBI anti-piracy warning.
So let me put this on the commentary cam so you won't see our ugly mug shots for for the rest of the time being here.
Yeah. So, anybody out there in the viewership, have any of you seen this film prior to today? So I don't know about you, Jason, but at least with the English dub here, the opening music is a piece of music that should be pretty familiar to people who have seen Godzilla vs. Gigan. It is more or less considered the main march or theme to Godzilla vs. Gigan.
For some reason, it sort of reminds me of, well, as far as the opening sequence, sort of reminds me of Monster Zero. Particularly when it comes to maybe like the coloring, the atmosphere look to it, just sort of how the film looks in a way.
So there is a huge misconception about this movie, and it's one that I always thought was really strange because I had picked up on this, um, a number of years ago when I first saw the film, and it's been a misconception that's been perpetuated still, even when this film has had an official release here in the States. And that is, there are plenty of fans that say that this is a sequel of sorts to The Mysterians. And that is simply not true. This is its own film. They're outside of a couple of characters whose names are the same, but played by different actors. There are no other similarities or connections with the Mysterians. Um, it's not like War of the Gargantuas, where at least if you see the Japanese film or the Japanese version of War of the Gargantuas, the Japanese version actually does make um, callbacks to the Frankenstein Conquers the World film. However, with Battle in Outer Space, that there are no callbacks to the Mysterians or anything of the sort. So this is its own film.
Mm.
So here, at least with the U.S. edit, we're getting the opening credit sequences with 3 flying saucers making their way towards the Earth, and this very rousing yet familiar marching thing by Akira Ifukube, where, again, if you've seen Godzilla vs. Gigan, is basically the main theme / march of that film. And that movie, anyone who is familiar with the production history of that film, a lot of that film's score was lifted from various other Godzilla kaiju tokusatsu films of previous years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and apparently when this film was released in Japan, December 26, 1959, just the day after Christmas, it was released by Columbia Pictures in 1960. It doesn't say specifically when in the United States. It came at, it was, or I should say, it came as a double feature with 12 to the Moon.
My research has says it was released in the States July 8th of 60.
Okay. Yeah, from what I'm reading here, it didn't say what specific day. It just only said year here. But even though when this film came out in 1959, just from what I'm watching it here via Blu-ray, it doesn't seem it was made in 1959. It almost looks like it was made in the 1960s here.
Yeah.
it looks
This actor,
fairly nice, like the presentation of it on the Blu-ray here.
yeah, the actor here playing the Lantern Man is Ikio Sawamura. Anybody familiar with the Godzilla series and any other tokusatsu films will recognize him in many bit parts throughout those particular films. He was used pretty frequently in a lot of Honda's films where he does play these very brief
Mhm.
parts.
In that one scene there when they had the bridge getting lifted up, it's sort of a nice way. However, when that train, fell off into the river there, I'm sort of surprised that they didn't have the train there explode. It didn't. It only just showed it just falling out, and then the bridge being lifted down. And I mean, with a lot of those sorts of train scenes or cars or what have you, when they fall off and then collide with something, you would expect it to explode or something there.
Well, yeah, and the tracks there when the bridge was placed back down, at least on the left side of the bridge, were not straightened out. But
Mhm.
then, of course, in that brief newspaper snippet you saw a moment later, the tracks were basically put back to
Ugh,
normal,
I
which,
didn't see that one there.
actually didn't happen in the miniature
I
set.
would have thought that the way that bridge landed, I would have thought that like almost all of it should have at least bent or just collapsed after sort of that hard landing there that it made.
Yeah. So, Battle in Outer Space in Japan for 1959, or during its theatrical run, I should say more specifically, made about $329,000 at the box office. It was the 25th highest grossing Japanese produced film of the time. During its theatrical run of that year, kind of late 59, early 60. And this was as a result because of the fact that its box office performance was slightly underwhelming. This really was the last time that Toho began to um, look at structuring stories in a slightly more complex manner. Even though this film is not all that complex, there are more intricacies involved with the story than what we will find later throughout the 60s. And so basically, the KIS acronym was implemented. In other words, keep it simple. As a result, many of the stories going forward with Toho during the Showa era had stories that were more straightforward and easier to follow, so to speak. And this sort of was also a point, too, in which budgets, even by this point in 59, started decreasing ever so slightly. A lot of people say that kind of mid to late 60s is when everything like that started. Not necessarily true. It was kind of starting with this film, after this film, I should say, that the budget started being cut just a little bit. They weren't cut as noticeably and as significantly as they would in the 60s, but already, at least with Toho, some of these special effects films were starting to see budgets ever so slightly decreased.
And I don't know if you noticed that in the, I'm guessing it was the United Nations scene there, that they had a guy supposedly from China, and even though that this film was made in 1959, they still had the what apparently is now the Taiwan flag, even though that China was taken over by the Communist Party in 1949, 10 years prior, which is sort of amazing how they still did that, even though the uh, the Republic of China government at the time flew over to Taiwan there.
Here's Ahmed, the Iranian representative. Yoshio Tsuchiya playing Iwamura.
Still seems quite the same. It's like even though he hasn't really changed
There
appearance over
are
the years, up until you basically saw him in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah '91.
Yeah. Already what we've seen in this film, a number of map paintings, and they're absolutely incredible. Like here in this scene in the background where you see the mountains in there, that's a map painting as well, and they're very well done.
Well, I know they showed quite a few in the beginning. They're showing
Yep.
like some of the destruction of roads and buildings where they had like some sort of tsunami going towards building, and I'm guessing it was Venice, Italy. There.
This movie is very much in the fashion of the type of film Ishiro Honda would make throughout most of his tokusatsu movie making career, and just sort of his own world view in many respects in terms of the countries of the world coming together in many of these UN/conference style settings to figure out a solution to the problem at hand. And the interesting thing, though, is that even though Honda himself um, was a pacifist, this film and several other films very much embrace a sort of militaristic style of solution to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So our lead actor here, the one not carrying the gun there, the actor's name there is Ryo Ikebe, and he played in the movie Gorath. Anyone who's seen the film Gorath, he is the lead in that film as well. And the man is sort of in the foreground to the left, wearing the glasses, whose back is sort of to us. That is Korea Senda. Korea Senda also played in a couple of other Honda films. He also appeared in Varan, the Unbelievable, or more specifically, just DAIKAIJU Varan. And there's also one other film, The H-Man. It's so funny that this gun produces a ton of radiation, and yet they are not wearing protective gear, and they're touching this plate with their bare hands.
And also just really not wearing any protective gear, for that matter.
Well, that's what I had said,
Yeah.
yeah. I will say with our lead actor, Ryo Ikebe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, he is not one of my favorite lead actors. Again, like I said, I've only seen him in this film and in Gorath, and I've never really been sort of sold on him as a leading actor. I find him to be very vanilla in his performance. He rarely emotes and displays any sort of emotion and the like. He's always been very plain in his appearance and his style of acting, and
a little
I
too
just don't care
serious.
for him. Korea Senda, I have to say too, I have never been quite as sold on him as well. However, I do believe out of the three tokusatsu films I mentioned, this, Varan, and the H-Man, I do believe he performs a little bit better here, but that could also be due to the fact that he has a slightly larger role here than he does in those other two films.
And one thing I just want to touch upon, just kind of following up on your talk on the reception of the film. Uh, apparently, a person named Howard Thompson from New York Times, he gave this film a mixed but a general positive review, stating, "quote The plot is absurd and is performed dead earnest. Some of the artwork is downright nifty, especially in the middle portion, when an Earth rocket soars to the moon to destroy palpitating missile base. The Japanese have opened a most amusing and beguiling bag of technical tricks as death-dealing saucers whiz through the stratosphere, and the lunar landscape is just as pretty as it can be."
Yeah, at least here in the U.S., the critical reception was relatively positive. You know, it wasn't overly positive, but more times than not, it was basically um, sort of received generally well, and more for its effects work than anything else. There's something wrong.
And I forget that guy's name right there. I know I've seen him in a couple other tokusatsu and or other kaiju movies. You smashed my hand!
How did he get the gun back? He just gave it to the inspector. Now he has it again. How did he get that gun?
I thought it was dropped on the floor there.
Yeah, but then he picked it up. The inspector said, "You're under arrest." He gave it to the inspector, and then he broke free, grabbed the girl, and then pointed the gun back at them again.
How can his hand be bleeding from just that electric thing there?
It's amazing that this guy, even though he's under the spell of the Natalians, which are the invading aliens in this film, he's able to evade all of these military police. Ah! Yeah, let's get down. That's going to help you.
So is it like just a
You failed
so
us.
is it like just a shadow, or do they just like burn him alive or something, or evaporate
My
him?
guess is he's actually burned. Yeah, he's like burned in place. But still, like, why would that particular part be radioactive? Because his body would have shielded that area of the
And
ground.
how would his cells be like stuck to the rocks there, even if it was radiated?
Because I would assume he's vaporized and just kind of, you know, due to the intense pressure of the vaporization, that you would get small bits there on the ground.
But then wouldn't they be at least mutated from the radiation?
I don't know.
Toho
I mean,
science.
these guys are willing to handle. These guys are willing to sit next to a ray gun without protective gear and handle plates that were shot with a radioactive gun too. So
Well, that's just Toho science, though.
this particular film, you know, we talked a little bit earlier about how it's very Honda-esque in terms of showing conference centers and or the United Nations. This one is very heavy on these
Oh
meetings.
yeah.
I can't think of off the top of my head, anyways, any other Honda tokusatsu film that shows more of these conference meetings than this. I think potentially it's been a little while since I've seen it, but the only other film that I think that may compete with this one is The Mysterians.
And I don't know if you point this out too, that the special effects for this film were done by E.G. Tsuburaya. Just so that everyone knows here.
A small part of the reason why this film was made, too, since you bring up Eiji Tsuburaya, was that Tsuburaya was very fascinated about what the moon surface potentially looked like. And during this time, the Russians had sent 2 rockets to the moon. And so Tsuburaya, before anybody was able to either take photos of the moon's surface or even land on the moon, he wanted to create a film depicting the surface of the moon. It was sort of his own race to just kind of figure out what this looked like. And eventually in 1969, when Neil Armstrong and his crew set foot on the moon and brought back pictures of the surface, Eiji Tsuburaya felt vindicated about how he represented the surface of the moon. But I find it interesting because the surface of the moon presented here in this film, while barren and rocky, yes, is similar to that of the actual moon's surface, but in this film there are more hills and mountains and valleys than what were depicted on that 1969 footage.
And with this movie set or made in 1959, wasn't that the same year when Soviet Union at the time launched Sputnik into space?
I don't remember if it was Sputnik, but I knew that it's very possible. Yes, I don't know that for
Let's.
certain, but they sent 2 unmanned
Okay,
rocket tails out in space.
so according to this, it was launched in 1957. So just 2 years prior when this film was made.
Again, we get this supposed love story here, and Mr. Vanilla here just isn't selling it to me. This relationship goes nowhere in the film. It's the sort of relationship you would see in many American science fiction films at the time. And again, I just am not sold on Rio here. You should be worried. Town? What is that? The ladies' man, Yoshio Tsuchiya.
I also like the colors that they're using on this shot here. It sort of reminds me of, that movie House. The House. Uh, I'm guessing some of you might know it's
Yosh-
It's a Japanese classic, but it's very weird.
Yoshio Tsuchiya always loved playing characters that are either aliens or possessed by aliens or other oddball roles. And in fact, Yoshio Tsuchiya always claimed that he had seen flying saucers before at various points over the course of his life.
Which I think is understandable, and I'm probably guessing why he likes taking on these certain roles where, I mean, he just acts like a normal guy and everything during these films, and then somehow in a certain point that he gets at least manipulated or taken over by certain alien races.
Yeah. And another shortcoming of this film is the fact that we are approximately, let's see here, let me see. We are approximately just a little over 25 minutes into the film when he becomes possessed. And the thing is that he's basically possessed throughout the rest of the film. And while it does have some consequences later, the stakes should have been so much higher, and the consequences of his being possessed showing up more frequently over the course of the film rather than sitting back and keeping it quiet for the most part until they get to the moon's surface. I don't think that this was played out all that well. What they should have done is, if they're going to possess him this early in the film, is to have his character try to commit more sabotaging or other acts of violence during the time he's possessed, or wait and hold off his possession until they get to the moon's surface. But
Banzai!
it's very much like these astronauts are going off to war. And again, we don't see a whole lot of this sort of send off in many other Honda films. I mean, sure, we get send offs like in Mothra, for example, but nothing of this sort where it's almost like soldiers
Like,
going off into
like in this
battle.
magnitude. It's like most of them you just see at least a couple of the main characters of the story or possibly side characters and just see them enter into like a rocket or a spaceship and then they just take off. This is almost sort of like um, in 1954's Gojira in a way when they are sent off when they are sent off from the ship and to defeat Godzilla with the oxygen destroyer.
I always found these sorts of send offs to be more work than what they're doing, because it's like, look, these people have not accomplished anything yet. Why all the confetti and the streamers?
Well, they just gotta use them elsewhere.
Wait for their
Yeah.
return. I do like the control room set here. It is very sort of in the vein of 1950s and 60s science fiction films, even here in the U.S. And I'm a huge fan and sucker for the classic science fiction films of the 50s and 60s. There's just something about them. There's not only a charm, but just the representation of the technology and the aliens themselves that I love an awful lot, and it's something that I find to be very lacking in many other films going from the 70s on up to the present.
Spip. That's the name of the rocket.
It's supposed to be pronounced Speep. Fefe. I see FFE. Fefe.
Radar control with parentheses EA. And then the other one it says PAA. I wonder what those mean.
Your movie must actually be a few seconds in front of mine.
I think with this Blu-ray version, if I can remember, it didn't have all that FBI sort of stuff. It did that before the menu stuff came up. Because my
Well, and then too, well, like I said, I have not seen the Japanese version, so I'm not sure how different that version is from this.
well, in this Blu-ray combo that I have here, along with the H-Man, I'm not sure because I'm guessing you're watching the DVD one.
Oh yeah.
Is that DVD version, was that released also by Mill Creek Entertainment? Because my DVD combo is.
Mine was released by
Okay.
Sony.
So yeah, this one's released by obviously a different distributor.
Now, does yours have the commentaries by Steve Reifel and Ed Gajuszewski?
Well, when I went to the Japanese version, I didn't see that. I'll have to.
I mean, look on your cover
see
there.
here.
This is one of the worst shots of the film here. We get a couple of people, including Yoshio Tsuchiya, pulling their faces back to simulate the G-forces as they're going up into space. It's, in my opinion, not just a couple of the worst, most painful shots ever in this film, but really in all of cinema that I've seen.
So yeah, I'm looking here for Battle in Outer Space. Yes, there is a audio commentary with Steve Reifel and Ed Gajuszewski. I always have a hard time with that.
Shevsky.
Always have a hard time pronouncing his last name.
You have the English dub too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this one has both English and Japanese versions of the film. Same goes for the H-Man as well.
This guy here, and I don't remember his name, but he obviously plays a lot of Caucasian bit roles in many of Honda's tokusatsu films of the mid-50s through about the mid-60s.
You know, the one thing that I like here is that even though that they're in outer space, they use these like the leather football helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the subtitles here they also call it SPIP.
The thing is, though, that on board, and I have not heard anything as far as whether or not their ship has any sort of gravitational mechanism in place, but everybody here should be floating.
Yeah. You know, just with the way that they are walking around in that rocket, I would assume that they might have something like that, but during that time, I'm guessing that they didn't realize of no gravity in outer space.
Well, they did, because that one guy, when he unbuckled his belt, floated up, and Yoshio Tsuchiya was the one responsible for when they get to the surface of the moon. He is the one responsible for them filming everything in the sort of slow-mo floating manner because of the fact that there is less gravitational pull on the moon than there is the Earth, and even Honda for that as well. So responsible for more of the accurate representation of.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit here.
The moon.
You're breaking up a little bit there.
Yoshio Suya is responsible for how
Can
everybody
you even hear me?
walks. Yeah, I can
Okay,
hear
you're breaking
you.
up a bit here. Your internet quality is getting a bit low quality right now.
Well, according to what my internet says, I got a good connection.
Well, I'm seeing quite the opposite on my end here.
Well, Yoshio Tsuchiya is credited for having everybody walk in the slow floating manner when they get to the surface of the moon. He was the one who told Honda, look, there isn't as much gravity on the surface of the moon, so shouldn't we be walking more like there is less gravity? And Honda said, sure. And they gave it a try and they stuck with it. So Tsuchiya is responsible for that.
And with these football leather helmets that they have, I wonder what those different color stripes mean. I wonder if it's by their rank or something. Because, like, on that one gal, she has a red stripe on the front there, and then with Tsuchiya's, he has black, and then the head guy
I'm
there, he didn't have anything.
sure it
Hello?
is rank for
Hello, you're breaking up here.
the mission. Yeah.
You're really breaking up. I couldn't hear anything.
Andor. Yeah. Uh, okay.
Your Skype is really breaking up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the. Yeah. I don't know what to make of it. I. It's showing that I've got good internet, so it might be on my end.
Well, that's just great. Why don't you try at least restarting Skype here? I'll send you a link.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your audio is really low and your video quality is terrible. So while Kent is restarting his Skype here, right now everyone within SPIP 1 here is figuring out that Suchiya is basically infiltrating and trying to destroy everything in the ship here just by touching random buttons and switches and everything here, trying to guessing cause to have the spaceship blow up. Then we got a comet here going towards the spaceships or rockets.
There we go.
There.
As they used to say, son of a bitch.
Yeah, your audio and video just really went downhill there.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my internet because my internet's fine.
It's always the
These
Skype.
pages and stuff were loading, so it had to have been Skype.
It's always Skype. But yeah, while you were out for a few minutes there, I was just mentioning about how everyone on the ship finally realized about Tsuchiya and trying to destroy the spaceship there.
You notice that the stripes for the people on the SPIP-2 have 2 stripes on their helmets? Probably meaning for the second rocket. I just realized that.
Huh. Well, it's like now I'm trying to guessing what the different colors mean, because like some of the people have different colors than others.
My guess is indeed its rank. But I think the number of stripes is indicated as far as the number, the rocket number you're on.
Which makes sense.
I don't remember which rocket number.
But then you have this guy right here who doesn't have any stripe at all.
Right, the head guy, like he's the leader. Like when they show Rocket 2, the American, he doesn't have a stripe either, and he is the commander of that rocket. If they ever show the second rocket again.
Never again. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, you're several seconds ahead of me. Actually, more than several seconds. You're probably like 20 to 30 seconds ahead of me.
Oh, wow. Boy, those FBI...
Well, like I said, I had that FBI anti-piracy
those things probably take a while.
warning on mine. Maybe if I just for a second here. Right. I don't know if that's where you're at, but I'm closer. I know that for sure.
So, yeah, right now they're landing on the moon there.
Yeah, the rockets are just beginning to rotate.
Yeah, I was just noticing in that one shot there with the lead guy where he has his head tilted back.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the only one in that guy too, but the other crew members, they didn't really do that. In this music here when they're landing here, it sort of reminds me of one of the Gamera films.
Kind of, yeah, it's definitely in that vein. So far we're roughly halfway through the film. Like, what are you making of all of the effects work thus far?
Well, as far as the visual effects for this film, there really isn't much in that field, but as far as the practical effects and some of the matte paintings, I would say that they're really good.
Yeah, I would say overall the effects work is pretty darn well. If I had to give a letter grade, I probably would give like a B+. There have been a few shots that are a bit rough around the edges, but overall, everything has been presented pretty well.
Yeah, if I could do a grade as well, I'd probably at least give it a B.
I will say though too, despite the fact this movie runs, just ever so slightly over an hour and a half, the pacing at times is uneven and slow. For example, I would argue like the last 10 or so minutes since they've been making their way to the moon have been slower than what is
Mhm.
necessary.
At least I probably would say it's not as slow compared to Latitude Zero.
Latitude Zero is almost a 2 hour movie for starters. And yeah, I mean, Latitude Zero is really something else. I keep forgetting that movie exists, honestly. My subconscious is probably purposely like, no, this thing doesn't exist.
It's like I want to keep forgetting about it.
Oh, while I think about it, there's at least one other film we have not discussed and we have not done a commentary for that I need to put in the notes thing here.
And this
That is the green
and this
slime.
also reminds me of Monster Zero, like this whole
Hmm.
setup here. And I'm probably guessing that how that movie was sort of influenced in a way was because of Battle in Outer Space.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, Battle on Outer Space was probably harkened back to for some of these setups and shots.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that's quite the tank.
It always reminds me of a caterpillar,
Yeah, it sort of
like
does. Just the appearance of it.
one of those caterpillars you see like in Super Mario with the red nose.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now I can see it. It's like that combined with maybe like one of those vehicles that you see in Antarctica.
Yeah. Oh, look the Earth! How cute it is! Shut up. There we go again. Numbnuts keep screwing up. Yeah, I didn't have it on here. I said enter. There we go.
Well, the thing about the green slime is that I don't even have that movie yet.
It just recently, like in the last year or so, came out on Blu-ray. I got the DVD of it,
I
but
should probably see how much that's going right now on Amazon. And I know, I think was it a year or a couple years ago when G Fest was showing that over at the Pickwick the day before
yeah, I think
the
so. It
event
was like a
began.
couple years ago, and then I think it was last year. Last year, the year before, was an anniversary of the film, and Kevin Horn gave a panel discussion on it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only just seeing the DVD version of the green slime. Oh no, there we go. There's Blu-ray. So that's going for 1820. But
That's
yeah,
actually
and
not bad. I thought it would have been like
Prime
25.
Video has it for rent for $2, and then $7 to buy.
What's the DVD?
$12.
Does the Blu-ray have any like special features?
I do not know. I'm taking a look. They only just show the front cover. I wonder if they have anything
Yeah,
listed.
but go down, scroll down to like specs, see if there's anything.
Product details. Not seeing anything there.
Okay. Yeah, because there isn't much known about this film. Kevin even said that during the panel, and that's why that particular panel was such an open discussion, just because a lot of information or anything about the film is just sort of lost. So
Mm-hmm.
it is an interesting movie. I think it is a film you will want to own.
Well, I know was thinking about uh, going to see that, and I know I mentioned about that to you because I know these last few or so years that we've been tempting to go to see some of these movies over at Pickwick, but we end up
Yeah.
not doing it. I think we need to do that next year. we just need to do it one of these times.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. The hovering aspect of these vehicles, I find not first and foremost, it's a little cool that they do it, but at the same time, it's kind of silly given the fact that they're designed the way that they are.
It looks a bit awkward.
I
I
still
mean
look at it and I'm like, that's a caterpillar. That's not a vehicle.
the camera angle when they were showing the two of them hovering and stuff, it looked pretty cool. But just I would say the execution was a bit weird in a way.
Did you notice too, even on the helmets, that they have the color stripes, and even the ones from the Speep 2 have two stripes?
Yeah, and when I was looking at the SPIP 1 helmets there, I was going to mention something about it, but you were still talking. That, like the ones from SPIP 1 almost sort of looked like the ones that were red colored looked like Ohio State helmets in a way.
Yeah. Are the red ones like the people from the original Star Trek series where they're basically destined to get shot and killed?
And then, of course, you have, well, yeah, you got the leaders that also didn't have the stripes on their helmets. Okay, yeah, so they have like the color, like the yellow ones that you saw there, that were
Yeah.
yellow, and then it says right next to it, Chief, off the side of the helmet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm guessing.
I saw Korea Senda's helmet, though, said Commander on it.
So yeah, I'm guessing it was like rank and everything with those specific colors.
See, that helmet should have been floating.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I do like how they actually just have it horizontal, like have that entire set up vertically, though.
Yeah. Crack. That was kind of some bad acting. This shot here, and I think there are a couple other shots similar to it, were filmed in Mount Mihara.
Which is sort of cool in a way, because then oh gosh, maybe about 25 or so years later, they use that as one of the sets for the Return of Godzilla, or the main plot.
Yeah.
Or the ending scene, I should say. It'll be cool that one of these days, whenever I go to Japan, with Mount Mihara being part of the Tokyo prefecture, like just take one of the like a day ship or something and just go over to Mount Mihara.
Again, arguably, we're spending more time walking around than what is necessary.
It's almost sort of like Latitude Zero all over again, but this time it's just walking around the moon.
Yeah, I mean, I do like this movie, and like I said, strangely enough, this film is just a hair over. And even then, like we've said before with certain films that are an hour and a half, maybe even shorter, that sometimes they feel a lot longer because of just the decisions they made to
just the pace,
film.
yeah, just the pacing wise, just makes it feel like that it's a lot longer than an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then here we go again with Tsuchiya trying to sabotage the rockets. Hey guys, look what I found! A tunnel! I wonder what it says there for the red guys. Did it say radar? I couldn't quite make it out. Radar? What? I can't even quite make it out.
I'll tell you.
Derpy derp. Keep moving, damn it! Yeah, the one.
This movie's only 90 minutes.
Yeah, so his helmet, it had a white stripe, but it says Navigator.
At first, my mind when I saw part of the side of his helmet, my mind immediately for a split second thought it's an alligator. He's an alligator.
What kind of rank is alligator? What's the role of it?
Oh boy. He's an alligator.
Well, it does sort of make sense because he's just sabotaging.
I go chomp.
Well, he's just
Chomp, chomp.
sabotaging the like the spaceships and everything.
Go around like an alligator to a wildebeest. Yeah, but alligators aren't saboteurs. I do kind of like this little miniature of the Italian home base.
It reminds me of the Mysterians base when it was in Earth, in a way.
It was like a spinning breast. That one looked pretty cool.
Yeah, like it has this huge opal, like red blinking opal with surrounding opals just turning around it.
Well, I'm talking about the Mysterians one.
Yeah, it's sort of, well, like this one here that I was talking about here. That has that similar top to it. And then I would like to know what some of the other things are around that main base there.
Well, we are never going to find out. And then here we have always these characters always reminded me of like Star Wars characters. They kind of look like some of those stormtroopers you see from Return of the Jedi. But then again, maybe George Lucas stole these helmet designs.
Or maybe like Spaceballs. With how funny it looks.
I've never watched that movie in its entirety.
Well, I try to.
These Natalians were supposedly as vicious as they are. Their introduction here and just sort of how they're treated by the film is pretty underwhelming.
Well, and just the execution and how they're pretty much portrayed in this. It just doesn't quite seem like that they're harmful or anything or doing anything ravaging.
So it took them, what, probably a half hour to go from one rocket to the next?
You know, with that one spaceship exploding there, you would thought it would have cause a ricochet and basically cause damage to the other spaceship and probably tipping it over.
Oh, yeah, I've always thought about that, too. Well, the thing is, though, too, because there's no oxygen in space, I don't think there would be much of actual explosion. Like the thing would blow up, but like itself would sort of be contained and slightly minimized because of lack of oxygen.
So now here we get some visual effects, and with a gun being used there, it almost makes me think of the like the ectoplasma from Ghostbusters.
Yeah. You
Oh,
idiot. You just bomb rush the crowd. What kind of an idiot are you?
and the sounds that the Italians are making, I think it's probably the same ones that were used for the mega neurons in Rodan.
Mega Newlons, yeah, yeah. Exactly. They're like zombies. Again, it's very underwhelming, their representation here.
And I like how that gun just completely evaporates all the Italians there.
Yeah. And again, I do like this movie, and part of it is just things like this with an Italian ship. Just the physical representations of certain things are kind of cool. And the overall sort of story being a simple alien invasion story. But yeah, there are certain things like those Natalians that we just saw there. They're underwhelming. The pacing is off. I a lot of times don't realize it until after a while that I end up actually kind of spacing off for a decent chunk of the film because it is very ponderous at
Yeah, I was
points.
doing a little bit of the same too. I mean, with all the pacing that they, or the slow pacing that they were doing with them, just basically walking around the moon there, I would have thought they would have just, you know, they should have just used all that time for maybe like an actual battle, like having instead of just two rockets just going over to the moon and fighting all the Natalians there. You would have thought that they would have sent in so many other ships and having maybe like a platoon or something, helping them out instead of just a few people just taking out an entire
Yeah, I mean,
base.
yeah, and we talk about pacing being a serious issue with this film and how we've said like their trip to the moon and then walking up to this point to find the base, they took longer than what was necessary. And that time could have been cut down, and yeah, like a battle of some sort could have taken place. We could have had higher stakes because this here, as visually cool as it looks, it is very underwhelming because even though the Italians are shooting back here, there aren't as big a stakes here. And we don't really get those stakes realized until a bit later with the dogfight. And even then, that is not handled quite as well because four world ships are destroyed. And so then you're talking what, four pilots having been killed in that final dogfight. The mothership coming to Earth and destroying parts of Tokyo is pretty cool and ups the stakes a bit more. But still, it's very underwhelming. And here, especially, it's even more disappointing considering this is home base for the Italians.
And the one thing that's a bit weird for me in this sort of thing and how it's executed, that they have these lasers coming out of the main base from like the actual ports where their spaceships are coming from. I would have thought that would
Right.
have came from like that actual, like that opal looking sphere that's sitting on top of that base where raised up there. I would have thought it would just come from that, but it just comes like those lasers just comes out of those spaceship portals like randomly, which is a bit strange in how they did that.
Yeah, and those laser shots were just random. It's sort of like they were crazy, and they're just like, "Oh, just fire everywhere and see if you hit something." Like it's, and some of their ships were even leaving, and it's like you could end up
Yeah.
accidentally shooting one of
Well,
your own
and just like
ships.
the origin of some of those lasers, they don't just stay like stationary from what you see when those lasers are executed.
Yeah, it just is kind of sloppy and
I mean, I get that they're trying to, have those lasers move, but just don't have the origin point of those lasers move as well.
yeah.
Since they're in uh, outer space, you would think that they would have a separate chamber within those caterpillar tanks with like a separate room just to suck out all the like the vacuum or just try to keep the oxygen within those caterpillar tanks.
Well, they're still wearing their helmets, so they're
Right.
not concerned about oxygen or not. But yeah, I mean, it would sort of make sense so you don't have to wear your helmet all the time. But then you might forget to put it on when you're ready to go out and be like, right time.
Or just probably without uh, chamber sucking out the vacuum or putting in the oxygen before going out. So I could probably just cause a lot of space issue, which I can, which would make sense.
Oh yeah, it's more about getting people from point A to point B than anything else. I will say that how the saucers fly, I never once have noticed any sort of strings or anything like that as those things fly.
Yeah, and I'm trying to just take a closer look at some of these on Blu-ray here that I just haven't really seen any strain yet. But as far as the close up of one of the guys here using the gun
Yeah.
here with the matte screen, it just looks a bit silly.
Yeah, it's that way too on the DVD. It has to do with the whole blue screening and everything. It's unfortunate, but oh well. I mean, even though you can't see the glass bubble, at least he's still wearing his gear. So even if it wasn't a bubble, you could still say, hey, at least he has his gear and he's not like. It would be a completely different story if he didn't like have his helmet
Well, I
on.
can I can at least see just a little bit of it, but just barely due to the
Yeah.
matte screen there.
And then here we have a kind of a stupid quagmire that the people from the second rocket have gotten themselves into. Um, this to me is kind of frustrating too because uh, it does nothing but to pad out the film again, and it's supposed to create tension, but it really doesn't because there are no actual consequences that come of this. It's very disappointing that you have these things built into the story, and what ends up happening is a completely underwhelming, uh, dull moment. It cheats the audience, is what it does, because you have enough of these moments over the course of the movie, and very rarely, if at all, are there any consequences to all of this.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, it just adds more padding to the movie, which it really shouldn't.
It
It
is, yeah.
really shouldn't be. It's like it shouldn't just extend the whole story. And then now you see them arriving at the rockets and everything. They just only see one of them exploded, which was SPIP 1. But SPIP 2 is still standing as is.
I always thought here too, on some level, would you honestly want people to be in the car? I mean, sure, you got the big laser gun there, but you're a bigger target than if you were to try to like go by yourself into the nearby hills there and hide.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little unbelievable there.
I mean, you think the ray gun on the Caterpillar tank would be more effective than just a regular individual gun there.
Damage, but you would really need to be firing a decent amount of time at one of those
Mm-hmm.
to blow it up.
And you can see there with the lead actor that he was
Exactly.
trying to tell the guy to get away and everything, but he didn't really have the facial expression.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say something about that because I was like, yeah, there we go again. Like, there's Mr. Vanilla there. He's just not really delivering here.
I mean, this is just my opinion, but I'm not sure if this was even the case. But I'm guessing just even though that this guy was in at least a few of these tokusatsu slash kaiju films, that I'm guessing with just the way that he acted in this film, I would say that he probably just wasn't casted ever again. But I'm not sure if that's just really the case. But that's just my opinion.
He movies, but yeah, as far as tokusatsu films, he wasn't in many of them.
Because I'm guessing the last one that I know that he was in was Dagora. Maybe?
No, he wasn't in that one.
I thought it was.
I think the last one was Gorath because that was 62.
When was Dagora made?
64.
So yeah, that should have been his last one. Or I'm thinking of
he
someone.
wasn't in that film.
Or I'm thinking of someone else, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, Yosuke Natsuki was the lead actor there.
Might be.
I have to say the AIP dubbing of this film is actually pretty decent. I mean, occasionally, kind of like with Iramura's final words there, where it was choppy, it was like, "I blew up, forgive me, go back home." Like his character all of a sudden becomes this sort of Americanized Japanese stereotype that is very ridiculous. But at the same time, overall, the dubbing and everything, I would say, is pretty darn good.
Although I would have to say, and I'm gonna just say it for you, that I probably wouldn't care much of the subtitle text for the subtitle version or the Japanese version. That's just white text, but it does have some black outline for it.
That seems to be the standard color anymore.
Although I think that in the beginning that they did have it yellow because the text for the cast and everything was yellow. You know, I just realized that in the couple scenes that they had for this, the last couple scenes that they had for this United Nations meeting room, that they never show the nameplates of the different countries nor their little flag things again.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like a couple of those shots there were actual either repeats from earlier in the film or were separately filmed during the same time as those earlier shots, but then inserted for this section. Couple of dolls there. I mean, the miniatures otherwise, though, are pretty cool, and I do like this matte painting here.
Yeah. I would say the practical effects and the matte paintings for this film are pretty darn good.
Orbit plot. They should have had a big chart like that for the plot of this film.
Yeah, I just realized that they had like a huge major project from what it looks like in the Arctic Circle. So now they did like in Gorath, where they did like a huge major project in Antarctica.
Oh yeah.
So now Toho's done major projects for both sides of the world.
Yeah. Kong escapes. Was that the Arctic where Doctor Who originally was based? I think that was the Arctic.
For some reason, something's telling me Antarctica. Or it could be somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure.
It was in one of the poles. I want to say, though, it was the Arctic.
It's been a while since I've last seen that film.
You're not Russian. It's like he disappears.
Well, I thought that guy was supposed to be...
Because,
like, earlier in the film, that guy was right in front of the Canada nameplate when he was at the UN.
Well, yeah, but they were saying, like, Russia over, and then they go to this guy.
Yeah.
And see, here's a couple of characters that we're supposed to feel for, but we barely saw the guy earlier in the film, and we've not seen her up until now, and we don't see him again later. So again, they're trying to create stakes, but the characterization is such a piss poor job in this film that you're just kind of like, huh, don't get killed now. Like, it's just... That guy, again, his name starts with an N, and I wish I could remember his name, but he plays a lot of bit parts, too, in other kaiju and tokusatsu films. He was the lead actor in Varan.
Boy, the matte
blue screen.
Yeah, the matte screen there was a bit messed up because his seat was actually showing the background of space there, so that was...
Why isn't the guy suffocating?
So that's sort of a big mark as far as the visual effects there.
Yeah. I'm sort of willing to let that go because you have a number of those shots too in the Mystians. You have more of them there than you do here. Oh yeah, it is an eyesore, but I sort of forgive the films for that.
And so now you got the Monster March going here.
It's like a bunch of missiles shooting up instead of rockets.
Just so you know, your audio is muffled right now. Yeah, I can hear you. It's just your quality is going bad again. Stupid Skype.
Damn it. Good.
Okay, now it's starting to clear up there. And see, now we actually get some sort of actual battle going on.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes within the final, the final 10 minutes of the movie.
Can't believe we're close to being done with this.
I know, it's crazy. When we do these commentaries and they're Gone lickety split. That guy, I didn't realize that the back of his rocket was actually on fire. That was a boo-boo on the part of the effects work.
And then again, like with these Natalian spaceships, like their origin point of these lasers, they're just a bit random in places. They just don't really stand still.
Yep. You read my mind again. I thought about saying something like a minute ago, and I'm like, nope, not going to.
Well, it has to be said.
Yeah. Stuff that has to be said.
And
they're bringing asteroids with them.
Yeah, it's like he saw one that was going towards the two spit rockets there. But I don't know if like the Natalian spaceships have like some sort of tractor beam just bringing them in or what. They don't really
I
explain.
would assume that's what's going on, like the mothership's bringing them in or
Yeah, it's
something.
like there's just really no explanation as to why those asteroids are coming in.
There's still, though, needs to be some sort of focus with this final battle, and sadly there isn't. I mean, we've seen a couple of characters a few times, but even then, those are characters that have never really been built up over the course of the film. It would be great if someone like our main actor here, Rio Ikebe, if he was potentially one of those rockets or something. Again, they're trying to create stakes, and in some way, they are doing a slightly better job. As here, we see part of New York getting
I really
destroyed.
like
But
this,
even
like these practical effects here of the miniatures of like basically downtown Manhattan and then the Golden Gate Bridge here.
yeah, driving on the Golden Gate Bridge was pretty surreal about a year ago when we were there. But um, yeah, like they do a slightly better job of upping the stakes during this final battle segment. But even then, it's still underwhelming considering none of our main characters are in those rockets. Um, it's just it's very kid glove story. You are actually yeah, but you have to center that around character that you develop and care enough about. Oh, sadly, I think I see a few thin strings on these ships as they're in Earth here.
Yeah, I can barely see it, especially on this main ship.
Yeah. I do like how this mothership beam operates here. I do like that.
Yeah, with like this anti-gravity thing here. It's just the way that that beam was shot down. It sort of reminds me of the Independence Day beams.
Again, you read my mind.
It's like they say, great minds think alike.
So don't fuck with us. That should make that in a teacher. Great minds think alike, in parentheses and smaller text underneath. So don't fuck with us. Sadly, you see some of the breaking points there in the build. It's just a minor quibble, but a little disappointing that you see that.
I'd like to know how they got that set up, trying to make it look like that those buildings are going up. I wonder if there's like some sort of fan, like powered fan. I wonder if there's like a powered fan underneath it, and then just
exactly. See, I was again.
Your audio is breaking up here.
That's for Pete's sakes. What about now?
It's cleared up, but I always hate it.
I'm wondering if it happens if we talk over each other.
Well, and I hate it too that with your cam here on Streamlabs, it always keeps resizing. I think every time when there's something on your Skype, and it's just really annoying from what I'm seeing here. Thankfully, we just got it on the title card here for right now.
Pretty soon, I'm not going to be able to talk on here. I'm going to be like Wile E. Coyote, just holding up different cards to talk about what I want to say.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Your damn cam here. Stop spurging out. Boy, just one ship just really blew up that.
Well, someone's gonna pay for that. Numbnuts, you're letting them crash into your hangars.
Well, whoever was the one that was operating that one huge laser
and
radar
Rio
beam.
Ikebe goes, oops.
We beat them all, although the one facility of ours.
Half of our planet is destroyed.
Even though they say, "Oh, we beat them all," but there isn't really any celebratory going on here.
Yeah.
Which is really underwhelming.
So what happened to the mothership again?
Oh, now they do it. Jesus, boy, they're really late.
Double checking there.
What's that?
So what happened to the mothership?
I don't know.
That's a problem with this movie. I don't know.
I mean, they were just like really late in their celebratory, and like they just really delayed it.
Well, they were still trying to double check to make sure that there was no.
Still,
other
I mean,
alien
they should have seen it, because didn't they have like some sort of televised screen going on?
Who knows? This movie is sort of.
But yeah, I would say the pacing and some of the cutting in this film is not done quite well, I would say. All right. And
that is the end.
Definitely is the end. And
so Final thoughts. Jason, you go first on Battle in Outer Space here.
Um, Besides the pacing, some of the weird cutting, and then also just the big mark on, I would say that match screen with that one rocket where the back seat or the head padding for uh, that one rocket shot, just showing the the outer space there. I would say it's a decent movie in its own right. But I would say it's the execution. It's a bit mixed. I would say, and I would at least maybe give it a a decent C plus uh, for the film, and I'd probably just give it like a rent, just to at least give it a watch.
Yeah, again, like I said, I saw this about a month and a half ago. And watching it now, especially sort of with, our own podcast critical eyes, so to speak, to try to give um, our listeners more of an objective take on the film. And the fact that we both pointed out uh, discrepancies here and there throughout the course of the film. I have to say, actually, interestingly enough, this time was probably my least favorite viewing of this film. Um, there are definitely some things I like about the film. I would say most of the effects work is pretty good. There are definitely some moments where it is a miss, but I give him an A for effort. The acting leaves a lot to be desired. Part of that, though, too, goes along with character work. Characterizations are very one-dimensional in this film. We really uh, barely know anything about even our main character, and even then, there's not enough there to substantiate us caring about him. Rio Ikebe, again, I'm sorry, he might be a good actor. I don't know, because in the couple of films that I've seen him in, he has not sold me on his ability. And the story is straightforward, and there's nothing really wrong with that. But at the same time, it is slowly paced in several key areas, and that should not be necessary. There should have been different decisions made to bring in more action. Heck, even you could have taken some of those moments, cut them down, and use that time elsewhere in other parts of the film to, let's say, either flesh out the story and or your characters more. Um, it this time around, like I said, was I actually look at the film now in a more negative light now this time after doing this commentary. Um, I think from an effects and visual standpoint, it is a fairly neat film to look at. But when you start following the story and everything, it's kind of dull, and it's not quite as entertaining. I would, if I had to give it a letter grade before this commentary, I probably would have given it a B minus coming into this commentary. Now I probably give it a C minus, maybe even a D plus. Um, I'm actually pretty disappointed now in this film, sadly, and it's understandable now as to why this movie just isn't heralded to the extent like a film like Mysterians. Part of that, though, too, is because you have a better cast in that film, and the story is fleshed out better as well. And then, of course, when you have great actors like Akihiko Hirata, Kenji Sahara, etc., any sort of lackings within the story, good actors can make up for it in many ways. Here, you just don't quite have the cast. I mean, sure, you got Yoshio Tsuchiya, but even then, he's pretty underwhelming, sadly, in this film. And that leads me to believe it has more to do with the writing, and I think that's very apparent throughout. If I have to give the letter grade for this film again, said sinus D plus. I still think though, for all, it's still something that I think every tokusatsu fan should see at least once. I have to give it a rent for my uh, final grade because again, I do think the miniature work and all that is quite good. It's a visual, fun film, but like I said, when you come down to the story and characters, it's incredibly lacking.
Hmm.
Again, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
I still give it a rent, but I'm actually more disappointed in it now that we've gone through this commentary and we've really sort of started seeing it slightly more critically.
Hmm. Yeah. So otherwise, can't really think of anything else besides uh, if you want to subscribe to us on our social media or streaming networks. We certainly are on these following streaming networks: YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, Periscope, and D Live. And then we have the audio versions of our shows over at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and TuneIn. And then you can also follow us at these social media networks. Here, just search for DAIKAIJU Network. And we also have our own website over at daikaijunetwork.com. But so if you can see on the main cam, this is how spurging out Kent's cam is from Skype there. Like every time it gets really, really annoying in a way. So, and I'm trying to resize it every time here, and then it's just really annoying for me. Gosh darn it! Stop spurging out for me here. Ah! Yeah. So otherwise, I can't think of anything else at the moment for the time being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching and or listening, and we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, gosh darn it.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time. I'm not sure when we are going to be announcing either our show or the
I already
commentary.
have an idea, so.
Okay. Just zoom it right there again so you can see my ugly mug for one more time. So otherwise, thanks for watching and take care, everyone.